Welcome to Global Lens. I'm Ashok Angadin, your host, and we're focusing on the frontier of science and integral consciousness. As we enter the 21st century, it's more clear than ever that there's an exciting moment in the evolution of the sciences and the convergence of what might be called global wisdom. Across the planet, our great traditions have recognized that reality is somehow deeply connected. And when our consciousness and intelligence is moving in that interconnectivity, a higher perspective opens up. And it seems as if there's a very exciting dialogue taking place between science moving to that unified field of interconnectivity and these traditions of global wisdom. And we're here tonight in our studios with three pioneers in this exciting evolution. First, we're with Dr. Ursula Goodenough, who is professor of biology at Washington University in St. Louis, who's written about the secret depths of nature and the interconnectivity and emergence of nature. Dr. Carl Pribram, very distinguished work in brain studies, brain function, consciousness over many years, and he's a research professor at Georgetown University. And our third distinguished guest is Dr. Daniel Monti, who is the director of the Myrna Bryn Jefferson Integrative Medicine in Jefferson Medical University here in Philadelphia. I think I got that right. Welcome to Global Lens. And I'd like to begin by hearing from each of you, very briefly, how you situate yourself in your work at this point in terms of where you see your field. Ursula, would you begin, please?
Sure. Well, I'm an experimental scientist. I work in the laboratory, so what I do in this context is kind of my night job. My day job is pretty straight. But where I have become very interested is in the fact that we now know enough about scientific basis for molecules and cells and embryos and brains that whereas the scientific push has always been and will continue to be to reduce and to find out how things are constructed and what's down there. There is also now increasingly, because we know so many things, the opportunity to begin to ask how these things go back together again, sort of putting Humpty Dumpty back together again, if you will. And a noun has been adopted by a number of people doing this of emergent properties, that when small things get together, that new things show up, and new things show up and build on that. And this is built a lot on systems thinking, complexity theory, all of that kind of approach. And so I'm very interested in the spiritual and religious implications of that.
That's wonderful. We'll come back to that about emergence and how this may connect. Carl, would you give us a quick briefing of your...
I also am a bench scientist. I work in the laboratory, have for the last half-century, and we've made tremendous strides in understanding how what the brain does, essentially. But of course, at the moment you come up with some solution to some problems, you are confronted with whole new sets of problems that you couldn't even imagine working on before. But now you can at least say, here we are, this is the frontier. And the hard thing in all of our kind of science is how to ask the questions in an answerable sort of way. Because if you ask the wrong questions, you're going to flail around. I think, let me put it this way, that philosophy very often asks very important questions, but they ask them in the wrong way, or they try to answer them by saying this is the only way, when it takes science to get down into the trenches, dig out what's going on, and so on.
Good.
And I also have, I don't think so much of emergent properties. There are problems to that approach, but you start at the top and not down. You do both ends at the same time. And so for consciousness, published a paper last year and said, everybody says consciousness is so